This video is brought to you by Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC and Opelika. Get ready to smile.
Hello, baseball fans. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Well, hey everybody, and thank you for tuning in early today for a huge announcement by the Atlanta Braves. Of course, had a press conference this morning where we found out that Brian Snitker will no longer be the manager of the Atlanta Braves. We knew this was a possibility. In fact, I was live last night. Some of you were probably here talking about the possibility of Snit retiring, and I was pretty vocal in my opinion that I didn't think it was necessarily a given. I still will stand by that. I think it was a decision that was made over the last week with himself and obviously with the Braves organization as a whole. He will be moving to an advisory role, which is similar to what Bobby Cox was in prior to his health concerns. But I think this makes sense because when Snit signed the 3-year deal a few years back, the 3-year extension, we all kind of knew, like, okay, well, that could be it, right? Like, we kind of expected for that to be the case. The only time I kind of thought otherwise was halfway through the season when Snit was asked about it, and he kind of hinted that he may want another year. Of course, the line here lately about unfinished business. And to be honest with you, from my point of view, I kind of thought, well, you know, he's earned that right if he wants to come back one more year. I don't have a problem with it. I honestly would kind of like the fact that Snit is at the helm just for the consistency of the coaching staff through this tumultuous time. That would be kind of a positive, all things considered. But that's not what's going to happen. What's going to happen is he will step into that advisory role, and the Braves are now on a coaching search. Before we talk about that, I do just want to highlight Snit for a few minutes. This is a guy who is Braves through and through. He's been with the organization for most of his life. He's been manager since 2016 when he replaced Freddie Gonzalez midway through the season. He inherited a club that went 59-65. He has never had a year where the winning percentage was less than that. Of course, he won the World Series in 2021. He was division champ. He led the team to be division champs multiple times. He did not have quite as many ejections as Bobby Cox, but he was known to have a few year to year, at least one or two. But all in all, just a terrific manager, a good person, a guy that the team obviously loves to play with. You saw how many guys showed up today to support him. And all in all, I think that says a lot. The fact that there were so many players in attendance for this announcement. If you watch the press conference, you're going to see Snit kind of tear up, and eventually he brings it back together. And most of that was because he was able to, he looked at the guys who was down there to support him, and he kind of was able to lock back in. So all in all, this is not overly shocking. It's definitely newsworthy. But it's not overly surprising. I would say all in all, we could have seen this coming. I was more so last night trying to get ahead of those people that wanted him gone. And for those of you that are out there that did indeed want Snit to hang it up, not even this year, I mean years before this, you guys know I've been an avid Snit defender for the past few years. I really do think he's a great manager. This year, he just wasn't given a very good hand, and no manager is going to do well under those circumstances. Of course, when your entire rotation goes out, the injuries that were dealt with, it just wasn't going to happen. And for him to handle that with grace and to never stand down, never give up, never let the team give up, to rattle off 10 wins in a row late in the season after being eliminated, says a lot about who Snit is and how he led the club. And it says a lot of, it's a big reason as to why he's a Braves Hall of Famer. And yes, he is indeed a Braves Hall of Famer. They made that announcement today. I expected it. I expected it whether he retired today or retired next year or retired, somewhat thereafter. He was always going to be a Braves Hall of Famer. If you're a manager that brings a World Series team to the city, you should be in the Braves Hall of Fame. But beyond that, the years put in. Not a lot of people have almost 50 years of service in one organization, and Snit does. He never left. He never wanted to go anywhere. He was hired by the Braves. I believe it was Hank Aaron that hired him. And, of course, he led them. He got to the point where Hank Aaron was able to see him as manager. He got to the point where Bobby Cox was able to see him retire as manager. He's been here a long time, but that's special. And something about the Braves, a lot of people complain about this, but I view it as a good trait. They are loyal. Snit is loyal. Bobby Cox is loyal. The organization is loyal to their people. And it's to me, it makes them different. It's why a lot of the players like playing here because, in large part, we're pretty loyal to them. Obviously, business is business. You got to do what you got to do at some point. But the Braves overall, you look at where things have gone and how things have gone. If you're good to the Braves, they're pretty much good to you. And this seems to be the case with Snit. And I'm happy for him. He has nothing else to prove. He has done good, and that's really all I can say. That said, there's a lot to talk about when you bring up a coaching search. We got a Q&A in there. Who do you want to take over? I asked the question. If you're out there and you haven't already, please do like the stream. We would appreciate it. Also, comment who you want. Who do you want? Not even just manager. Anytime something like this happens, there is a chance that coaching staffs kind of as a whole take a hit and make some developments and make changes. So let me know, what you think. I'd love to let you know. But I will say this in terms of a coaching change. The first thing is the rightful successor to Brian Snitker is Walt Weiss. He's been in the dugout for pretty much all of Snit's tenure, if not all of it. He's got plenty of baseball experience. He has been a manager before. And if, we were talking about continuity earlier, that would make the most sense. He's been the guy who's kind of been the rightful heir. That said, there's other guys that could get the call, right? If you want to make a radical change, if you want somebody younger, Skip Schumacher is out there. Mark DeRosa is an interesting one to me. I don't think the Braves are going to go with Ron Washington. I love Ron Washington. I have a signed game-used helmet from Ron over there. I am a big fan of his coaching style, his baseball knowledge. I think he'd be a great asset to have if you wanted to bring him back in some capacity, mainly for the infield. I think that would be great. He's the infield guru. To have him back in Atlanta would be special. There's no way around that. I don't think he'll be manager, and a large part of it is his health. A large part of it is his age, and I don't think they're going to want to do that. For the same reason, I see some suggestions in the chat. I don't think they'll go with Dusty Baker. I don't think that age is what they need. At this point, if you're going away from Snit, you need someone younger, and you need someone who knows the organization, who knows the way things work, who knows the Braves' way. And I think there's a lot of guys that could fit that category. But Dusty Baker, Ron Washington, I don't think are those guys. It wouldn't surprise me if it happened, I guess, but I don't think that makes a lot of sense just from an age demographic alone. If you want to make that radical change, to me, it's more so in age than anything. But we'll have to see. There's a lot of guys out there. I've even seen d'Arnaud be suggested, Travis d'Arnaud be suggested. I don't hate it. I don't know how much coaching experience he has, but I don't hate it, all things considered. Joe Madden, that's interesting. I just don't think so. Right now, by the way, speaking of Joe Madden, former Angels manager along with Ron Washington, I saw a report today saying that Albert Pujols could very well be the next manager of the Angels, which I thought was pretty interesting. So to me, baseball is kind of moving younger, right, in terms of managers. In large part, Snit was honestly kind of on an island unto himself. There's just not a ton of older guys. But Bob Melvin is a guy with experience that you could bring in. Bruce Bochy, I think, is free if you wanted to bring in someone like him. There's a lot of guys out there. I'm seeing Chipper be suggested, Chipper Jones. I highly doubt that will happen. Chipper has made it abundantly clear that he doesn't really have any interest. His quote, if I can remember correctly, was something along the lines of, I made promises when I retired to be a father, and he still has young kids. So I don't see that happening, not unless something changes that makes it a lot easier to be a big league manager. But I just don't think it'll happen. I think the most likely candidate, the one that it will fall to, will probably be Walt Weiss. That would be my guess. And again, the organization could decide that we need to pivot and we need to move away from what we've been doing. And if that's the case, that kind of hurts the chances for Walt Weiss. That would improve the chances of someone like a David Ross, who is younger and does have managerial experience and does know the Braves organization through and through. He was a backup catcher for McCann back in the day, right? So there's a lot of ways it can go. I think you're going to have a lot of guys that are up for the job. They're going to have a lot of interviews to get through unless they've already picked out who they want. And if that's the case, then so be it. I don't know. We don't know any of that. All we know is Brian Snitker will not be that. But he will have an advisory role, and that doesn't surprise me. Like I said earlier, it really doesn't. I think the advisory role makes a lot of people... It makes sense because having Snit around in spring training to give advice to the next manager, that kind of thing. All in all, though, there's a lot of ways this can go. But we will see. I think a lot of people will be up for the job. You know, the other guy that does have managerial experience that is on the coaching staff as we speak is Freddie Gonzalez. And he doesn't only have managerial experience, he has managerial experience in Atlanta. I'm not saying it's going to happen. Personally, I don't think it will. But that has to be considered. You have to think that Freddie took the job he has with aspirations to one day maybe return to being a manager. I think Walt Weiss would make more sense in that regard. If you're going to hire within, Walt Weiss is the guy. We'll have to see how the interviews go and what happens, but that would be the way I feel about it. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to break. When we get back, we're going to continue to go through the comments. Let me know, number one, who you think it could be. Let me know who you think the Braves will target. Is there somebody that's out there that we haven't mentioned? Is there somebody that I said no to that maybe you think otherwise to? Let me know in the comments.
Are you looking for a powerful new Chevrolet or GMC truck and a great deal? Check them out side by side at Glenn Smith in Opelika. Take your choice of new Chevrolet and GMC 1500 trucks discounted up to $12,000 off. Chevy and GMC heavy duty trucks discounted up to $7,000 off. People from all over the USA save at Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC in Opelika, Alabama. Get ready to smile.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Thank you for listening to the word from our sponsor. We really do appreciate it. If you got into the Q&A, we really do appreciate that. A lot of folks suggesting a lot of different candidates for the next manager. I think it could go a lot of different ways. If they want to go young to highlight the young team that the Braves have and the young stars, they could. If they obviously, they could go with David Ross. They could go with Mark DeRosa. They could go with Travis d'Arnaud. There's a lot of ways that they could go. If they want to go in-house, of course, Walt Weiss makes the most sense. They could also go Freddie Gonzalez. They could also pick a number of coaches within the organization because think about where Snit came from. Snit was not a third base coach, first base coach. He was not a bench coach. He was in, I want to say AAA. I want to say he was the manager of AAA. And he got the call from AAA. So before that, Snit was virtually unknown to the wider audience of the Atlanta Braves fan base. Maybe some of the guys who religiously go out to Gwinnett knew him or followed the minor leagues knew him. but most of the Braves fan base did not really have a gauge. He didn't have the Ron Washington fanfare at his disposal. And so there could be a guy at single A, at double A. At double A, there's Cody Gabella, who, young manager who's got some experience, could very well fill that role if need be. And I'm sure there are others scattered throughout the minors that could get that call, but there's a lot of guys out there within the organization that could do it. I think the most likely successor would be Walt Weiss, because he knows the team. He's been with them for the past number of years. And frankly, when Snit gets ejected or takes a day off, it's Walt Weiss that's filling in. A lot of people are saying it's going to be someone who you already know who's been with the Braves before. Walt Weiss is my choice. Dusty Baker, I don't see it. Oren Griswold says, anyone not named Freddie Gonzalez. Freddie kind of gets the short end of the stick in some ways, because the years he had the Braves weren't great. We all are aware of that. I'm sure he's aware of that. But it's also, it's not really his fault in some ways. In a lot of ways, the team was coming off the era of Chipper Jones, and once he went away, they decided we needed to revamp. And he was never going to be on a winning ball club at that time. And it obviously they felt that they needed to make a change, and so they did. Obviously, they don't dislike him too much. They brought him back as a coach. James L. Jones, I wonder if you're related to James Earl Jones, says DeRosa, EY, Wash, and new hitting coach. Hudson is pitching coach. Probably none of that can happen, but a man could dream. I would personally love it if Tim Hudson became the pitching coach, and that's not a knock on our current pitching coach, but I do think that questions need to be asked when you're looking at how many injuries the starting rotation had, and frankly, just some of the performances this year. I like Rick Kranitz, but to me, if you're going to make the change at manager, this could be a good time to make a change elsewhere. They made a change at hitting coach last year. Maybe now it's time to make a change at pitching coach. Jaden says, Skip Schumacher, can he possibly be our next manager? It's very possible. We all know Skip Schumacher. He's definitely got the resume. If they want to go a different direction and not necessarily promote from within, it could happen. But it's all about who they think makes the most sense. I think Schumacher could very well be the guy. Josh Gillum says David Ross or Skip. David Ross is interesting to me. I don't think it'll happen, but it's not necessarily out there that, it's not necessarily a big problem to me that he didn't exactly work out with the Cubs. He had a few good years with the Cubs. He was young. They weren't necessarily in the most competitive mindset. I think it could work out, and obviously he's got history with the Braves. Let's focus on Mark DeRosa for just a second. Mark DeRosa obviously has got a history with the Braves. He does like Atlanta. I actually saw him in the clubhouse at the All-Star game, so I know he's a friend of the club. He did have this to say earlier this year about this season and the Braves. Quote, "This isn't just a slump. It's a systemic failure. The front office overpays for underperformers. The coaches baby the stars, and the players act like they've already won. Atlanta's got the pieces for a dynasty, but they're squandering it with excuses." So that's what Mark DeRosa currently thinks of the Atlanta Braves. Don't hold back, Mark. That comment could come back to bite him if he does have any interest in the job. I don't know that he has any interest in the job. He's got a pretty cushy, enjoyable job with MLB Network. He's really good at MLB Network, but that's kind of what he said about what the Braves are doing. So I don't know if they're going to go down that road. It's hard to come back from a comment like that. Mike Giamaria says, I watched my fair share of Braves games this year, did not see any evidence of the Braves forgetting how to play the game. Plenty of other teams offered plenty of evidence of that. Yeah, no doubt about that. It was more that they just didn't have the tools in the bag. It's not that they didn't know how to use them. It's that their starting rotation was completely absent. And beyond that, once something like that happens, it's hard to correct course. And then the little weaknesses that you had at the beginning of the season magnify, right? When they went 0 for 7 to start the year, a lot of people made a big deal about that. No team has ever made the playoffs that has gone 0 for 7 to start the season. And obviously that's not a good way to start the year, but I kind of still had faith that, well, if there's a team that can do it, it's probably this one. But that's with the understanding that we were going to have the guys that we had, and we had Strider coming back, and we had Acuna coming back, and Ozzie was probably going to get better, and Harris is going to get better. And then it just never really got to be full strength. And a lot of people are going to say, oh, you're making excuses. When your roster's depleted, your roster's depleted. It'd be like telling a football team to go out there with your entire O-line being out. It's just not going to work, right? And starting rotation isn't necessarily the guys that are going to be noticed being gone, because let's face it, they only pitch every 5th day. But when all 5 of them are out, it makes a difference. Last year or in 2024, there was a lot of talk about injuries. I talked that to death. Injuries. And a lot of people said I was making excuses. Well, when Acuna's out, when Riley misses substantial time, when Ozzie misses time, when Reynaldo's hit in and out, when, I could continue. Tyler Matzik doesn't exactly work out because he's hurt. There's a ton of pitchers were out. When that happens, it's not anybody's fault per se. It's a failure to stay healthy within the organization. And that is something that I'd like to look at in this offseason. And I don't know if there's a position necessarily that you can circle and go, you're not doing a good enough job. But our strength and conditioning, and our ability to stay healthy, I'd like to know what's going on with that, because that to me is kind of a red flag at the moment. It's not necessarily the thing, but it's certainly something. And we'll have to see what's going to happen. Sergeant Gibby says, after they started 0 for 7, the season was over. I have the receipts. Yeah, I believe you. I never thought the season was over. I thought if they could get healthy, they could always make a run. And the proof is in that 10-game win streak. They always had that. They always had that ability. It was a matter of if they're healthy, if they're playing well, and neither one of those seemed to happen. So it kind of just is what it is. Sergeant Gibby says no to Walt Weiss. I wouldn't mind Walt Weiss. That's just me, though. Eddie Perez. We talked about this last night. Eddie Perez would be interesting. I don't know. How do I put this? I've never looked at Eddie Perez as a manager, though. Like, my entire life, he's been a coach on the Braves, right? Literally. Or at least the latter, probably the latter 2/3 of my life. Anyway, that entire time I've never really looked at him as a manager. I'm sure he could be a good manager. I think he probably has some of those skills. He's obviously been around enough good managers to see that with Snit, with Bobby Cox, and even the short time with Freddie. He could do it. But I think that Walt Weiss, if you're going to go within, Walt Weiss is going to be the guy. And it may not be the guy that you want, but Walt Weiss is going to be the guy if they hire from within. If they don't hire from within, the guy with the best resume that's out there would probably be a Bob Melvin or a Skip Schumacher, but I would say more like a Bob Melvin. Just a guy that's managed for a long time and has had winning baseball and that kind of thing. Bruce Bochy is another, but again, at a certain point, age is a factor. Bruce Bochy is a certified Hall of Famer today. He's already in there. He's won 4 World Series, I think. He's in there. He doesn't have anything left to prove. It wouldn't surprise me if he just decides to retire. Everybody thought he was going to retire once he left the Giants. And then, of course, he went and won a World Series with the Rangers just for the heck of it. So there's a lot of ways this can go. There's a lot of guys out there with the resume, but I don't know if there's a lot of guys out there with the right characteristics of age, with the right characteristics of energy, with the right characteristics of, frankly, being on this team, because the Braves are different. And the one thing that Eddie Perez gives you is he's bilingual, right? So there's that component. But even that to me is kind of secondary to, is he the right fit? And it could be interesting. I don't know. I'm not in the interview room. I like Eddie. I told a funny Eddie story last night, but I don't know if he's going to be the guy. But the important thing is, if you're going to be looking for a new manager, now's a good time, because we've gone through 15 candidates. I'm just saying, there's a lot of guys to pick from, and if you're going to be looking for a new manager, now's a good time. Captain Spartan says, chop on. In the Snit interview in the future, ask him about Snit Bear. If I ever get to interview Snit, if I get to sit down with Snit in the future, I'll do it. I have interviewed him a number of times over the years. Back in spring training of 24, I went down, and I had never really gotten to cover anything before that point, other than the playoffs of 23. I was there for that. But anyway, I begged my employer, look, let me go cover this. It'll be great. I'll give you content for a year. And it worked, because they had just made the announcement that the minor league team was moving to Columbus, and there's a lot of excitement behind that. Well, I interviewed Snit, and I asked him a couple of things. The first was Adam Duvall had just come back, and I asked him, I said, hey, Snit, could you comment on the arrival of Adam Duvall and the return of Adam Duvall? He goes, nope. Of course, my heart just sunk. Like, what? I'd never really met Snit in a professional capacity, so that was kind of a tough one. And then he went, I'm just kidding, and then he gave me an answer. That's actually out on Twitter right now. I just reposted it from a couple of years ago. So I've always loved his sense of humor. I asked him also about, the minor league team moving to Columbus, and he goes, Columbus, Ohio? I was like, no, Columbus, Georgia. It was kind of funny. But that said, if I ever do get to interview him, I have a world of things to ask him. What were you thinking when Soler hit that ball 1,000,000 miles an hour? It hadn't landed yet. What were you thinking when Eddie hit the homer against the Dodgers? What were you thinking when Eddie made the crazy catch against the Dodgers? What were you thinking when there's 1,000,000, right? Tell me about managing some of these guys in the minors, right? Like, he had a young Frenchie and B-Mac in the minors. I want to say he had Chipper in the minors at one point. He was there for a lot of that time, and he probably has a lot of great stories to tell. I know he's got a lot of great stories to tell. All in all, though, I'll tell you this. We're talking about interviewing Snit. I caught up with him at the All-Star game. I shared the story last night about talking to Joe Torre. 5 minutes after that, I went and talked to Snit. He was, typically the way it works at the All-Star game is it's at they did it at the Roxy, and it's a big room, 1,000,000 different tables set up, and players are all spread out, right? Juan Soto's over here, Acuna's over here, Brendan Lau's over here, Josh Hader's over here, and some people, will get swarmed, right? Shohei Ohtani, you got no chance of getting an interview with Shohei Ohtani. Freddie Freeman, kind of the same thing. Acuna, I got for about that a half a second at a time like that. But a few guys are open. A few guys aren't really getting a ton of interviews. Joe Torre was one of them, because frankly, a lot of people my age don't know who Joe Torre is. But that's neither here nor there. I couldn't wait to talk to Joe Torre. And of course, I asked him about catching up with Snit. That was a really good conversation. But I walked over to Snit, and Snit had a few people, obviously being the manager of the team that's hosting the Braves. He had a few people. But I got in front of him. A lot of people were asking him about, this. Frankly, a lot of people were saying, hey, is this going to be the year? And I chose not to do that. I didn't think that was the time for that. I asked him about guys coming back like Fried and, Freddie Freeman and, just so many guys that were coming back, and his current guys that were having the experience of an all-star game in their home ballpark and, frankly, having the experience himself. And he kind of lit up. He hadn't got that question all day. And I always had a good interaction with Snit. He was brutally honest. If you remember the Trevor Bauer clip that I got, where somebody asked him, would we ever go get Trevor Bauer? And he went, nope. And that was it. That's him. That's exactly who he is. He speaks his mind, and he lets it be known what he thinks. And beyond that, he's honest. He's a good dude, and he's a dang good baseball manager, and he will be missed. And he's rightfully going to be in the Braves Hall of Fame. And we'll have to see. We'll have to see who replaces him. We'll have to see where the team goes from here. It could go a lot of different ways, but we'll have to wait and we'll have to see. But let me know what other questions you got. We're going to be doing some other content. We're going to be doing some other things in the next few weeks. Obviously, with the new manager search, it's going to lead to some new content. And, obviously following the offseason acquisitions, the offseason, whatever we do, like if we trade somebody, we're going to follow all of that. But more than anything, we want to create content for you guys. So let me know. Anytime what content you want to see. Someone has suggested the studio tour. I'm working on it. For right now, you got a different angle of the studio. You get to see the Bobby Cox jersey, the Fulton County Stadium seat, and my Masters flag signed by Larry Mize. I have a Turner Field seat over there. There's a lot of things in here that are never on camera. So we're going to get that done. But we're also going to do whatever content you want to see, whatever topics you want to talk about. Let me know in the comments section, really anytime. Like just message me on any video. I'll see it. And of course, I'll try to get as many of those done as I possibly can. If not, I'll do a short talking about it real quick, and we'll move on. Sergeant Gibby. Oh, Lord. I was on the floor laughing and fell out of my chair when watching Frank the Tank stream. Not much can make me tear up by laughing so hard. I am a big fan of Frank the Tank. Frank has become a national icon and a perfect Mets fan. And as a Braves fan, I enjoy watching him too. So for all of you out there that are watching, here you go.
Well, the whole season is falling apart. Ever since Michael came out there and cursed him, and now Sanger's hurt, out for who knows how long, and we're going to watch Frankie Montas come in. Frankie Montas can't get out little leaguers. And then we got Miguel here smiling as he gets tattooed. Blackbird getting tattooed. The Mets are going to give up 9 runs a game. 9 runs a game, and then they're Buster Bulls, and they're never going to get another win again.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Frank. Couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah, I hear you. John Kruger says, told you yesterday that Snit would not be back. Yeah, I mean, I just thought that if he wanted to, he should have that ability. I think he probably made this decision himself, if I had to guess. And I didn't appreciate everybody bandwagoning together and saying, oh, Snit's terrible, when, in years prior, he's done a lot of good. This year just didn't go well. And so I was kind of coming out to that defense. But if we're moving in a new direction, I'm good with it. And obviously we're going to have to see where this goes. But there's a lot of candidates out there. Some we mentioned, some we probably don't know. But we'll have to see. Jake Hobby brings up a good point. He said, if anyone needs a channel to watch the play-by-play games of the playoffs, check out CeeLo. He's doing Boston, New York tonight. On the go with CeeLo. Big-time supporter of the channel. We appreciate him. He works his tail off on those. Streams for just hours at a time. I don't know how he does it. But he'll be on doing Boston, New York tonight. He was on doing them last night, and he did the Dodgers-Reds last night. I don't know if he'll do them tonight as well. But throughout the playoffs, if you need a free way to watch the games on the go with CeeLo's, you're out to go. So with that said, thank you guys for joining. Obviously, this is a hot topic at the moment. We really do appreciate you guys being out here. And thank you to all our top fans out there. A lot of you guys out there. Sergeant Gibby, you're my number one. Jamison Taylor, my number 2. And Yusuke Knight, he's up there too. But the guys that continually watch the live streams, the guys that continually comment on the channel, comment on the videos, watch the shorts, you are a huge part of this, and we could not do this without you. Oh, okay. Sergeant Gibby, my number 1 fan, asked me, who do you think wins the World Series? You know what? hang on a second. Before I speak out of turn, I need to see who's in it, to be honest with you. I've been so focused on the Braves this past week that I have an idea of who's in it, but I haven't really thought past the wild card. Give me the bracket. It's not so much who's in it, it's more who plays who. Who do I think wins the World Series? What a good question. What a out-of-the-pocket question, but a good question. Detroit's really good. They're in the wild card, but they're not favored to win it, or they're not seeded to win it, rather. You can't count out the Dodgers. The Phillies they have the bye, but you can't count out the Dodgers. To me, and to be honest with you, I think LA probably beats Cincinnati. If I had to guess. Did they win last night? Yeah, they won handedly last night. So to me, LA probably beats the Reds. I think between LA and the Phillies, it could kind of go either way, but if it was on fair, equal territory, LA probably wins that. With the bye, though, it could go a lot of different ways. I think LA comes out on top there. They go to the NLCS. On the other side of the NL, you got San Diego and the Cubs going at it in the wild card. I'll go Chicago there, but I'm going to go Brewers to advance. Brewers, and so that would be Brewers and LA in the NLCS. And I like the Brewers. I think they got it this year. But I could be wrong, but I really do like the Brewers. On the American League side, that's tough. Does Detroit they play their first game tonight, correct? If I had to guess. That tells you how little I'm following. Oh, they're currently playing. They're tied at 1, so that could still go either way. I'm going to go Detroit winning the upset over Cleveland, going to play Seattle, where I think they will lose to Seattle. So Seattle goes to the ALCS. Boston, I'm picking to win the wild card over New York. If you can't win with Fried on the mound, you can't win with anybody. I'm going Boston, and I think Toronto will probably get the job done there. So it'll be Toronto and Seattle in the ALCS. I'm picking Seattle to go to the World Series. And so it'll be a Seattle Brewers World Series. And from there, I would probably go Mariners. Probably Mariners. Oh, Lord. Captain Spartan, top players you don't want to see come back. I guess you're talking about on the Braves. The one guy that it just didn't make sense to me was bringing back Ozuna, or not trading Ozuna. And it's not because it's Ozuna, it's because it doesn't make sense anytime it happens. When the Cubs didn't trade Chris Bryant and he signed to the Rockies, they got nothing for it. Trevor Story, same thing. It never makes sense to me. If he's not signed beyond this year, trade him. Especially if you're not competitive. And the Braves weren't competitive and they didn't move him. So that to me was a little like, why do we do that? In terms of whether or not he should come back, it's possible. They've already said that. I don't know. Other players I don't want to come. I think the bullpen needs to be reconstructed kind of top down. Rysell and maybe Pierce Johnson excluded. Dylan Lee excluded too, just because he's affordable. But I don't want to pay Aaron Bummer $9.5 million, which is what he get this year. I just there's a lot of things in the bullpen that I kind of need to do a deep dive on and really paint it out. And I don't want to speak out of turn, but I know the Aaron Bummer $9.5 million option or whatever. I'm not going for that because I think we can get someone cheaper and better than what he's been. I like Aaron Bummer at $3 million. I don't like Aaron Bummer at $9 million. That's what I can say there. But we'll have to see. A lot of good content to come. I can assure you of that. Follow along. Turn on notifications. Guys, YouTube's doing a weird thing. I don't know what they're doing, but I don't like it, where they're not notifying you guys when we go live and we drop videos. I don't know what's going on. Notifications are set to be on, but I can't guarantee anything. So the best thing I could tell you to do is, if you'd like me to, if you're getting notifications, first off, let me know in the chat now that you're getting notifications. That would make me feel better. But I know there is a large group out there that is not getting notifications. I am going to try to do something to rectify that. But if you're getting notifications, that's great. Just make sure they're set on and make sure you have all notifications and all of that. But we're going to try to rectify that as best we can. But let me know if you are getting notifications. I really would appreciate that if you got notified for this stream. Obviously, it's great if you're just scrolling through YouTube and you see I'm live. That's always great. But if it's important that the notification gets out so that you know about it. So that is important. Yusuke Knight, glad to see you're getting notified. That makes me feel a little bit better. But we're going to try to be a little bit more consistent, a little bit more intentional on our content. And obviously, we want to make sure you guys are notified about it. So with that said, guys, one more time, I want to thank my sponsor, Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC in Opelika. They have been a great sponsor over the past number of years. And, of course, we're looking forward to carrying them into 2026 with a brand new Atlanta Braves manager. And the last thing I will say is, Snit, best wishes, and you've done very well in Atlanta. You have nothing to be ashamed of, and you have a lot to be proud of. So with that said, guys, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time right here at On Deck.
Baseball fans, make sure you like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. As always, thank you for your support. Baseball fans, make sure you like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. As always, thank you for your support.